Hello everyone, it is me, Pui, and I am here to tell you today some very good news. Empty Jar is not dead. It was merely in a cycle of rebirth, and it has returned to us today in the form of RON Control! So you may be asking yourself right about now, what is RON Control? Well, RON Control has a long legacy, originally created by legendary user RONRONRONRON5, later developed by other players, mainly Fusion and Alder. So truly could not have done any of what I did today without them. This is a PWC Q40 6th place deck tech, so I did just top out of 44 people with this deck. The deck was originally invented by RONRONRONRONRON5, one of the greatest duelists of all time, truly a household name. This deck is absolutely insane. It is a variation of Empty Jar, perhaps to say, but at the same time, as he would say, no one play this deck, which I think is supposed to be him saying that no one plays this deck. It's gone through many iterations, many concepts tried, because the core concept remains the same, but there are a lot of options on what to do with it. And what we get in the end, no matter what happens, is absolutely fire, absolutely explosive, and absolutely RON. So RON Control has taken many forms, and like I said, though they are all explosive, they are not all the same amount of consistent. And I think with my top today, I can confidently say that I think I've gotten probably the closest to the most consistent and maybe most powerful RON Control! So I thought it'd be worth sharing in a deck tech with you guys. One of the few decks I have completely in paper, so I thought I'd share it. Without further ado, let's get right in. So obviously, we're going to start off with both of our jars, both Cyber and Morphing. Deck doesn't work without them. We've got 3 Book of Taiyu to use them the same turn they're set, as well as 1 copy of Desert Sunlight as a 4th sort of Book of Taiyu, and can be chained as well, which is a big help in certain situations. We've got 1 Sangan to search the jars, 3 Mystic Tomatoes to search the Sangan. You can also get Cyber Jar and use it with a Book of Moon, and 3 Thunder Dragon for deck thinning. Now, looking at about this point, you might be asking what the heck this RON Control stuff is. This just looks like a normal Empty Jar deck. Well, from here, our next 2 cards are BLS, currently signed by the great James Ark, Ivan Rizito, and AJ Hussein, as well as 1 copy of Chaos Sorcerer in this build. We're playing lights, we're playing darks, we're playing 2 Chaos Monsters, and with them, we are playing 2 copies of Magician of Faith, 2 copies of Dekoichi, and 1 copy of Night Assailant. So now it's starting to look like it's half Chaos Turbo, kind of looking like it's Chaos Turbo, but it's also playing Book of Taiyu, which in some ways is accurate, though not every version of RON Control is actually playing like a Chaos Turbo deck. There are iterations that play more like Chaos Control, and there are more iterations that play like Burn decks, which are known as RON Burn! But these flips are the best. They are the ones that the original RONRONRONRONRON5 used. They keep the deck moving. If you have a Book of Taiyu, you can use it as a Upstart Goblin, or you can use it as another Trinity piece, which is fantastic. If you get Magician of Faith off your Cyber Jar and you have an extra Book of Taiyu, that's gas right there. You get to just keep extending your combos and doing crazy stuff. The Night Assailant is really not meant to be set. It's not meant for value really that often, but more crucially than even a normal Chaos Turbo deck does with it, if you can get a jar back with it as another way to revive it and extend your big plays, it's massive. So we have these monsters that really let the deck kind of move through advantage and play a slower game like Chaos Turbo while still going through, which is great. And then our last 2 monsters are 1 Sinister Serpent, 1 Tribe Infecting Virus. Virus helps get rid of lots of monsters, but I think its real use will really start to be clear as we go on further. And then Sinister Serpent's another thing we can get off Sangan. Just another thing we can set over and over again. Really, really helps against warriors, because if we can bait out their Mystic Swordsman, or even better, their Exiled Force with it, or maybe even just a knock, it'll let all of these other fantastic flips do their work just that much better. So we're playing this guy. It has further uses, which we'll get into later. From there, we're going to the spells. We, of course, play Pot and Graceful to keep our combo going. Graceful is I think this is probably the best Graceful Charity deck, this or maybe RGT probably. We are playing 2 Upstart Goblins because they let us draw through our deck. They're usable in Turbo, they're usable in Empty Jar, and they are usable in Ron Control. And then, yes, we are playing the Delinquent Duo. Why are we playing Delinquent Duo? Well, we can play a lot like Chaos Turbo. We can play a little bit more controlling. Crucially, these 3 cards as an opening hand are absolutely insane. You will roll people with this. If you can go Duo, and then you Tayo of Faith, and you get to Duo again, their hand is gone before the game is even starts. So that's just a crazy sack win. You can pull out of nowhere 3 cards for 4, and you can have plenty of gas to go after that. So definitely a worthwhile include. You can take it out. You can play builds without it, but it's just such a good card. You can't not play it. Then we're playing the full 4 sweepers. We are playing Heavy Storm. We are playing 3 Giant Trunade, because at the end of the day, Ron Control definitely does have its fair share of big combos in it. So we want to clear out our opponent's back row. We want to bait out that Solemn if need be, get rid of those Regeki breaks or whatever else that might be doing to stop us, and then we can go off. We got 3 Book of Moons. They go excellently with the jars, obviously. When you're using Morphing Jar versus Cyber Jar, this will help you extend, so you can book it back down, use the orange book to get it back up, and you can keep your combo going. It can reset any of your flips in the deck, which we play plenty of. You can protect your Chaos monsters. You can get rid of Balter if you need to, etc., etc. You can do plenty of things with the card. Really needs no introduction or no explanation. It's just an absolute necessity at 3, I'd say. From there, big question. How are we actually ending the game? We're doing these big combos. We're working on all this stuff. It can be sort of Chaos Turbo, but that is clearly not all that Ron is capable of running. So, way number 1, damage. 1 Snatch Deal, 1 Premature Burial, 1 Ring of Destruction. With the Trunades, Premature Burial is absolutely insane. This is a common Empty Jar trick, but it also is fantastic when you're just trying to kill with damage. This is where the virus really shines. So we have all of these cards, especially with the sweepers and the chaos monsters, that are designed to just let us do a giant sack kill. We can pretty easily push for 8,000 if we draw through enough of our deck. So between these cards and the virus, we really have everything we need to do it. The one thing we don't have is Nobleman of Crossout or Mind Control. However, in a pinch, you can use Book of Tayu, the orange book, to flip an opponent's monster back up. Which, especially if you've, gone through your deck all the way to get BLS, you can just hit over a double with BLS, and that should get the job done perfectly fine. Then from there, way number 2 is Mill. We are playing 1 copy of Shallow Grave, which lets us extend our Ron combos. If you go, obviously, Book, and then you go Shallow Grave, Book again, that's 2 jars instead of 1. And we are playing 1 copy of Card Destruction. Card Destruction works great with Faith. We don't really need to play Spell Reproduction. The card's a brick. If we can get a Faith off of a Cyber Jar, and then you can Book of Tayu it, you can get back your Card Destruction. So that's 2 Card Destructions. And between that and setting all your cards, you can do set cards, and then destroy your own cards with Heavy, or bounce them back with Trunade just to use more cards. Really just waste through everything. Get your hand small. Their hand should be massive. Card Destruction, that's a mill kill, right and easy. And then, the final way that Ron wins is with this nasty little gem right here, Heavy Slump. If you have never seen Heavy Slump, it reads, you can only activate this card when your opponent has 8 or more cards in his or her hand. Your opponent adds his or her hand back into his or her deck, shuffles, draws 2 cards. You heard me right, that's a 6 for 1 right there. Minimum, 6 for 1. So you've done this combo, you're what, plus 10 probably, plus 8 at the very least, maybe even plus 15 if you've gone 3 times, if that's even possible. And then you draw this card, and they're also plus 15, and now they're not. Now they're minus 6 from where they started, at the very least. If they jar into stuff like Sangan, into Magician of Faith, or Deco of their own, if you just attack into those, and add those cards to their hand on your turn, then on their turn, just go ahead and use this card, and they're out. The game's over. They're not going to be able to come back from that. No way, no how. I've seen it happen very rarely. It's just such a massive advantage swing. Very important note on this card. If your opponent has exactly 8 cards in their hand after draw step, you need to wait until their standby phase to use it. Because if they declare their draw phase priority and you try to use it the moment they change turns, their priority takes precedence, they get to play their card first, you miss the activation window. But if they respond with a quick play spell once you've activated the slump, once they've passed their draw phase priority, it will still resolve even though their amount of cards is now only 7. So very important to keep in mind, but that is the main board, and let's move on to the side. So as I said before, there have been a couple of variants of Ron Control. One of them was Burn, and one of them was more of a Chaos Control. I found the latter to actually be a very, very good tool. So for today, I experimented with 2 copies of Scapegoat in the side, with 2 copies of Meta, Tsukiyomi to facilitate your tear, and also loop your flips. Obviously, Faith Loop is an option, which is fantastic. Creature Swap is sneaky good because we are not only using it with Sangan, Serpent, and Scapegoat, you are also using it with Tomato to get back other targets, and you're using it with Jars. This is secretly another copy of Book of Taiyu. When you are trying to go harder on your empty jar combos, you can use this to take your opponent's monster, give them the set jar, and attack over it. And it's an extension of the combo. Just make sure that you are locked in to win with mill at that point, or with slump, because you can't win with damage after you pass the damage step, obviously, once you get past battle. So using these cards, I was actually also able to take out most of the empty jar stuff. You can take out the jars, at least Cyber Jar, probably. Maybe keep in Morphing against Turbo. Take out the Book of Taiyus, take out the Shallow Grave and such. You can play more controlling of a game, more of a solid CC thing. To go along with it, I have Mystical Space Typhoon and Breaker the Magical Warrior. So you can also take out the True Nades and really just play a normal fair game of Chaos Control when they're least expecting it. However, if you want to go harder into the empty jar, I do also have an extra copy of Shallow Grave to do so, as well as an extra copy of Desert Sunlight. Now, the big question about this deck is, what about the Warrior matchup? Warrior matchup, major ass kick. Empty jar matchup, really bad against Warrior. Chaos Turbo is generally really bad against Warrior. Turbo players bring in tools to beat the Warrior matchup that we are not playing. So obviously we've got this control package, but there is only so much. So very crucially, we are playing 2 copies of Kinetic Soldier. That's right, I'm using the light versions, even though it's Earth, because I am a little gremlin. And the sneaky good thing is these cards together, along with the extra copy of Sunlight in the main. What you get to do is bring in both Sunlights, and you don't need to take out any of your flips. Now, generally when I'm doing the full control, I will take out the Assailant, and sometimes I will take out 1 Deco, maybe 2. But you get to keep the Faiths, and you get to keep Kinetic Soldier. And now, if your opponent attacks into this thing with a Mystic Swordsman, or they try to knock it, or whatever else, if you Desert Sunlight it, that's a lot of damage. You're going to blank their Mystic Swordsman, deal a bunch of damage. You're going to blank their knock. You can use it to get Faith off through a knock. So it just does so much for the matchup if you time it right. And it's not hard to time right, because the Warrior players are going to assume that getting rid of flips is what they do. Now, the big other innovation I had for today was that I am not playing Royal Decree. Almost every build of Ron Control I've seen has played Royal Decree. And similar to how Chaos Control recently has done better by dropping Royal Decree, I decided to do the same. And instead, I am playing 1 Mirror Force and 2 Regeki Break. Looking back, might be correct to just play a straight-up Torrential Tribute instead. Actually even helps with proactive combos. But Regeki Break was nonetheless fantastic. Again, we are playing Sinister Serpent. We are playing 1 copy of Night Assailant, and we are playing 2 copies of Thunder Dragon, and we plus pretty hard in general. So it is not hard to get this card online and be using it as a strict 1-for-1 on anything we need. Might go down 1 for Torrential, who knows. Mirror Force, also absolutely insane. Makes the Warrior matchup even better. And Regeki Break can also help us against Panda. So between Regeki Break and going E-Jar mode and just ignoring them, it's very easy to beat the Panda matchup witut Meme Walk. The deck hates any True Nade deck. It's just an absolute nightmare for them. Believe it or not, I made this build all in one day, and I kind of just expected to not face burn. Against other matchups that I could see, stuff like Reasoning Gate and Zombies even, the Goat Control stuff is going to be way better. And then against other decks, just being an EJAR deck as much as possible and ignoring whatever they're doing is going to be great. Stuff like Control, especially if you're playing against Decree Control, all they can really do is use Balter. So I guess, I mean, you can just bring in the Desert Sunlight, or even just bring in the Regeki Break, or bring in the Traps, get rid of the Balter like that. Or you can use the Tsukiyomi even. I don't recommend that. But there's plenty of ways to get past Balter, or even get past Canceller over here like this. So the deck works well against other decks. Against Turbo and Warrior, which is what I played just about all day, my record, full disclosure, was, I think, 2-0 against Relinquished Turbo, 2-1 against Earth Aggro, and then I went 1-2 against a Turbo player, then I 2-0'd a Turbo player, then I 2-0'd a Warrior player, and then I ended up going 0-2 against the last Turbo player. I played horribly in my losses today. But against those matchups, I mean, I definitely was able to get the job done. Against those aggro decks, the Warrior and such, and the Earth aggro, the plan worked absolutely amazing, to the point where I was sort of starting to actively hope I was playing against Warriors. Even Mystic Tomato in the main is no slouch. It's really hard for them to get rid of, because when you knock a tomato, it doesn't get rid of all the tomatoes. You'll notice I wasn't playing Spy in this deck. A lot of builds will try to play Spy, because the deck almost always is pretty weak to Warrior. But the thing about Spy is it doesn't get the deck moving the way that Dekoichi is. I was anti-Dekoichi for a long time, but I really just decided to give it a shot today, and it was really fantastic. Turbo, the thing I will say, and the thing I will say about Ron Control in general, is as much as this is a beautiful, explosive, crazy, all-over-the-place meme deck, this deck is so hard to play. You need to know how to play Chaos Turbo, you need to know how to play Chaos Control, you need to know how to play Empty Jar, and you need to be able to find OTK lines like you're a Reasoning Gate player. And you need to juggle between these skill sets at all times, because you never know what goal in the deck you need to be doing at once. No deck will force you to have this knowledge as much as Chaos Turbo. I was so exhausted trying to figure out all my lines that I was just missing important details like remembering Serpent, or noticing I don't have a Light in the Grave for my BLS, and such. So I really think that my run could have gone a little farther. The deck played really, really well today. I had a lot of fun playing it. I got to kill with damage, I got to kill with mail, I got to kill with the slump even, the beautiful, beautiful slump. Look at him in his majesty. So I absolutely recommend giving the deck a try. It is so much fun. But with that, I have been Pui, and I am signing out. Ron.